Essentially, I'm going to talk about what the modern businesses are facing the challenges with ransomware, and how the threats are looking, and how we can be tackling a extortion scenario for us. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Sanjay Poddar, and I'm an advanced services engineer for Fortinet. I've been in the cybersecurity for I think more than like 7, 8 years now, and been in the networking and the network security side of the fence, and looking into firewalls and a lot of different cybersecurity technologies. So yeah, been a happy journey so far. So let's get started. So let's start with the obvious of how ransomware was and how it is today. So there has been a lot of changes on what we used to see, how ransomware used to be 5 or 10 years ago, and but now they have become a lot more detrimental and damaging. And yeah, like the attackers are not only encrypting your data to demand to unlock it, but they're also looking into other ways to sort of like damage, like bring in more power to damage, right? So let's say that the modern ransomware groups, they just don't encrypt, they also exfiltrate your data, they threaten to publish it. In some cases, they also launch a lot of like denial of service attacks to add that extra pressure for you, right? So that's what we call as a multi-extortion scenario, right? And also, it is just not about losing access anymore. It is about more about losing trust, reputation, and even not being able to stand on a compliance with the industry standards for cybersecurity. And these tactics are working because the more fear they drive into these corporations or customers, the faster they get their payments. Let's see what we have in the business model behind the modern ransomware, right? So initially, attackers rarely do it themselves, right? So they have access brokers and they sell the compromised credentials like RDP or VPN or even valid cloud logins to some of the ransomware groups, right? So the access for them is quite cheap, fast, and it's lower for the barriers for launching any attacks, right? So now we have things such as ransomware as a service, right? So even a low-skilled actor can run such attacks. They simply rent a malware, they choose their targets, they split the ransomwares with the developers, and it's kind of like a franchise model where people have got complete dashboards, they have got support, and even automated deployments. Now they have data leak sites as well, right? So with the extortion, what they do is that they collect all the data and they put it on publicly available websites. And even on top of that, those websites are even getting better listed in our search engines, right? So obviously, when it is such easier to put so much of pressure on somebody, it raises a lot of questions for the companies or organizations to do a lot of legal work, compliance, and even for the PR teams to act fast. They are using DDoS as a service to crank up the pressure, right? So, like for example, like a business has got, like a website or even something which is, like where the business could be hampered. So a DDoS, denial of service attack, is very handy for them to even like pressure them to get the ransom as soon as possible. So it's just not about, previously it was about more about like encrypting data and like holding to your data, but now it's more about feeling the victim, making the victim feel the pain across all fronts, right? And also, the payments these days, it's not a bank transfer, it is through cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency is really hard to trace back. So they have got like really good methods to sort of pressurize and to for and for the victims to pay up quick. Let's look at a real world example, right? So in 2021, there was a attacker group called Fin12. So they did attack healthcare, uh, the healthcare industry, and there were several of them. The attackers, got through their VPN connections, and within hours they were moving laterally within the network. And even in the next few days, they were able to steal like 90 gigs of patient data, and which essentially launched a ransomware using that. So the organizations, they did not choose to pay, so the attackers leaked their data publicly. This followed a lot of regulatory scrutiny, lawsuits, and recovery from all of this was worth more than $7 million. So these kind of things do happen, but like as Jessica mentioned in her speaking, in a speech, that um, there is a concept called SASE, which helps you to not allow a user or even an attacker to laterally move through the network, right? So there are new technologies. Of course, you have to keep on upgrading yourself, but there are ways that the organizations can better protect them from getting into such a mess, right? So what is the key takeaway over here? So they don't really have a lot of days to react to something like this, and sometimes not even hours. And without an early detection and segmentation of a network, and a plan that includes data leaks and not just encryptions of organizations, they are pretty much left scrambling. And but the damage is already done. So why does our traditional defenses fail in such scenarios, right? So the first thing is that we have to do a better job in terms of segmenting our network. So the better segmentation you have, the harder it becomes for somebody to access your entire network rather than just being in one portion of it, right? So for example, let's say that if somebody was able to access like an HR department file system, right? So they can only access that portion of the company rather than getting into the different parts of the network and into the different sections of the company. For example, like even finance, and even like the worst is the customer data, right? So the other thing would be that you have to always monitor for pre-encryption behaviors. Like for example, that if let's say that a large chunk of data gets encrypted all of a sudden, right? So why did that happen? So you have to monitor those kind of behaviors, right? So let's say with the most recent campaigns, which pretty much leaves, like a breadcrumb of encryption before such large events take place, right? So let's say that you might even see that a large file got zipped, right? Or unexpected data transfer, right? So catching these signals early on gives you the better chance to sort of like like to mitigate or to even like better detect before such things do happen, right? um, it's always best to encrypt your own data when they are at rest and also when they are at flight, right? So internal encryption turns into a sensitive data even in a digital junk, even if they get published, right? So if your data is encrypted, it's harder for them to sort of like exfiltrate data and publish it anywhere else, right? Also, it's best that you can build a test response for such specific like events as well, right? So let's say that this is just not your classic IT outage, right? So IT teams or and the other teams within the company, they have to have such plans that, hey, if these scenarios do happen, what should they do, right? So the legal team, the PR team, even the leadership team should be ready for such events even before they happen. So now we also have to treat the data exfiltration as a part of your ransomware threat model. It only encrypts Encryption isn't just the only threat anymore. If you're not detecting or planning for data theft, you're pretty much ignoring half of the playbook, right? So include exfiltration in your detection logic and response drills. So 5 ways to fight back. So how can we do a better job at this? So here is, like how can we better protect our network and how we can, fight back even when situations like these do come arise. So yeah, this is my presentation.